Ambassador Zektar's forearms trembled as he approached the massive crystalline structure that housed the Galactic Council's most sacred archives. The Velthari had served as the galaxy's record keepers for over 50,000 years, their crystalline minds perfectly suited to storing and retrieving vast amounts of data. Today, however, Zektar wished he possessed the blissful ignorance of his younger years instead of the terrible knowledge he now carried. The archives hummed with ancient energy as Zektar's webbed feet clicked against the polished floor. Floating data crystals swirled around him like luminescent snowflakes, each one containing the history of entire civilizations. He paused before the central nexus, a towering spire of pure knowledge that reached toward the vaulted ceiling of the chamber. Archive, Display Codex Regulation 777 Alpha, Zektar commanded, his voice barely above a whisper. The crystals around him suddenly stopped their gentle dance, freezing in midair. A low harmonic tone filled the chamber as the ancient archive processed his request. Then, in letters of burning gold, the regulation appeared in the air before him: Galactic Regulation 777A, Absolute Prohibition *** Classification, Universe Level Threat *** Enforcement. Immediate Extinction Protocols authorized *** under no circumstances shall any galactic civilization engage in hostile action against the species known as humans of SOL3, designation, Earth. Violation of this regulation will result in immediate cessation of all diplomatic protections and declaration of species-level extinction event, ***. Zektar's breath caught in his throat as he read the familiar words. What terrified him wasn't the regulation itself, but the date stamp. It had been created 12,000 years before humans had even discovered fire, let alone space travel. Even more disturbing was the authorization signature at the bottom. The ancients themselves had written this law. The ancients, the mysterious beings who had vanished from the galaxy over 100 million years ago, leaving behind only their impossible technologies and cryptic warnings. They had been gods among mortals, capable of moving stars and creating life itself. Yet they had feared something enough to write a law protecting a species that wouldn't even evolve intelligence for eons. Behind Zektar, footsteps echoed through the chamber. He turned to see General Thaxion approaching, the massive Krogian's battle-scarred carapace gleaming under the archive's ethereal light. The 8-foot-tall warrior moved with surprising grace for someone of his size, his 6 eyes fixed intently on the floating regulation. Ambassador, Thaxion rumbled, his voice like grinding stone, the council session begins in 1 standard hour. Have you found anything that might explain why the hegemony's fleet simply vanished? Zektar's throat sacs inflated nervously. 3 days ago, the Skarath hegemony had launched what they called a minor disciplinary action against Earth. The humans had apparently intercepted and destroyed a Skarath slave ship, freeing several hundred Kalani refugees. The hegemony, outraged that a primitive species had dared interfere with their operations, had sent a battle fleet of 200 ships to teach the humans a lesson. The fleet had never returned. More troubling, there had been no distress signals, no debris fields, no evidence they had ever existed at all. It was as if 200 heavily armed vessels and their crews had simply been erased from reality. General, Zektar began carefully, what do you know about the ancients' final days? Thaxion's mandibles clicked together in the Krogjan equivalent of a frown. Only legends and fragments. They spoke of a great enemy approaching, something that would test all life in the galaxy. Then, they vanished, leaving their warnings and their technologies behind. Why do you ask? Instead of answering directly, Zektar gestured toward the floating regulation. This was written by the ancients themselves. Notice the date. Thaxion's 6 eyes widened as he processed the information. His species was known for their tactical brilliance, and he immediately grasped the implications. That's impossible. 12,000 years before human civilization? How could they have known? That's not the most disturbing part, Zektar said, his voice dropping to a whisper. Archive, Cross-Reference Regulation 777A with all historical enforcement actions. The air around them shimmered as new data materialized. A list of species names appeared, each one followed by a date and a single word, extinct. Thaxion read the list with growing horror. The Devourer swarms, they tried to invade Sol system in 2387. Extinct within hours. The Void cultists attempted to corrupt Earth's biosphere in 2401. Gone without a trace. By the stars, there are hundreds of entries here. Every single civilization that has ever threatened humanity has been completely eliminated, Zektar confirmed. Not defeated, not conquered, erased. As if they never existed. And, in each case, there's no record of human retaliation. The threats simply ceased to exist. The two beings stared at the data in silence, each lost in their own thoughts. Finally, Thaxion spoke again. But, humans are just humans. We've studied them extensively. They're barely a Type 1 civilization. Their weapons are primitive chemical rockets and fusion bombs. They've never even left their home star system except for a few exploratory probes. Zektar's tentacles writhed in agitation. That's what terrifies me, General. What if the humans themselves don't know? What if they're completely unaware of whatever force protects them? The implications hung in the air like a poison cloud. If humanity was under the protection of some unknown entity powerful enough to erase entire species from existence, and they didn't even know it, what did that say about the true power dynamics of the galaxy? Archive, Zektar commanded, display all available data on human defensive capabilities and unusual phenomena in the Sol system. The response was immediate but frustrating. File after file appeared, each one marked with the same designation, classified Observer Corps only. Observer Corps? Thaxion inquired. A secret organization within the Council, Zektar explained grimly. They've been watching humanity for the past 1,000 years, documenting everything. But, their files are sealed at the highest levels. Only the inner circle has access, and they're not talking. As if summoned by their conversation, a new presence entered the archive chamber. The temperature dropped noticeably, and both Zektar and Thaxion felt their primitive brainstems trigger fight-or-flight responses. A figure materialized from the shadows between the data crystals, tall and impossibly thin, wrapped in robes that seemed to absorb light. It was a Watcher, one of the mysterious beings who served as the Council's intelligence operatives. They rarely spoke and never revealed their true forms, communicating through telepathic impressions that felt like ice water in the mind. The Watcher's voice echoed directly in their thoughts. Your inquiry has been noted, Ambassador Zektar. You will attend the emergency session immediately. Both of you. Emergency session? Zektar asked aloud, though he knew the Watcher had already departed. Thaxion was checking his tactical display, his expression growing more troubled by the second. Ambassador, we have a problem. Long-range sensors are detecting massive fleet movements throughout the galaxy. It appears that news of the Scareth fleet's disappearance has leaked. How many species are mobilizing? Zektar asked, though he dreaded the answer. 47 confirmed, with more joining every hour. The Krogjan High Command has issued a general alert. The Valtheri Crystal Collective is awakening their warminds for the first time in 10,000 years. Even the peaceful Luminari are arming their shepherd fleets. Zektar felt his blood turn cold. They think humanity destroyed the Scareth fleet. They're planning a preemptive strike. Against a species protected by something that can erase fleets from existence without leaving so much as a debris field, Thaxion added grimly. This isn't just a potential war, Ambassador. This could be a galaxy-wide extinction event. As they hurried toward the council chambers, Zektar's mind raced through the implications. 47 species, possibly more, were about to violate the most sacred law in galactic history. A law written by beings whose power had been absolute, whose warnings had never proven false. And, somewhere in a small blue-green world orbiting an ordinary yellow star, 8 billion humans went about their daily lives, completely unaware that they were about to become the center of the largest military crisis the galaxy had ever seen. The worst part was that humanity would probably try to surrender or negotiate when the fleets arrived. They had no idea that their very existence was somehow connected to a force so terrifying that even the ancients had felt compelled to protect them from the galaxy's predators. As Zektar and Thaxion reached the council chambers, alarms began blaring throughout the station. The massive blast doors were sealing, indicating that the council was now in emergency session. Through the transparisteel windows, they could see hundreds of delegates from across the galaxy, all talking at once in a cacophony of languages and communication methods. At the center of it all, a massive holographic display showed the current positions of the mobilizing fleets. They were converging on Sol system like antibodies rushing to eliminate an infection. But Zektar knew better. They weren't the immune system in this scenario. They were the infection, and something unimaginably powerful was about to eliminate them all to protect a species that didn't even know it needed protection. The council chamber erupted in chaos as Supreme Chancellor Mordak called for order. The ancient Etherian's crystalline form pulsed with frustrated energy as hundreds of delegates shouted over each other in dozens of languages. Holographic displays showed the approaching armadas in real time, their combined firepower enough to sterilize entire star systems. Silence! Mordak's voice boomed through the chamber, enhanced by psionic amplifiers that made every being present feel the command in their bones. The cacophony gradually died down. We face a crisis unlike any in recorded history. Ambassador Zektar, present your findings. Zektar rose from his delegation's platform, his forearms trembling slightly as he activated the central display. The image of Regulation 777A appeared above them all, its golden letters reflecting off the chamber's curved walls. Honored delegates, Zektar began, his voice carrying clearly through the chamber's acoustics. What we face today is not just a military crisis, but a fundamental challenge to our understanding of galactic power structures. Admiral Cassera of the Valkyrian Space Navy stood abruptly, her bioluminescent patterns flashing angry red across her amphibious skin. With respect, Ambassador, we know what we're dealing with. A primitive species destroyed the Scarith hegemony's fleet using unknown weapons. This is a clear and present threat that must be neutralized before they develop technology capable of threatening us all. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the chamber. General Faxion activated his own platform's display, showing the complete list of extinct species who had violated the regulation. Admiral Cassera, Faxion's gravelly voice cut through the murmurs, you speak of human weapons, but consider this, every species that has ever threatened humanity has been completely eliminated. Not by human retaliation, but by something else entirely. Something that can erase matter from existence without leaving any evidence. The chamber fell silent as delegates processed this information. Finally, elder scientist Quindala of the Cerebral Collective spoke, her massive brain case pulsing with thought patterns visible through its translucent shell. The mathematical probability of such consistent protection occurring naturally is essentially zero, she announced in her mechanical voice. We must conclude that humanity is under the active protection of an unknown entity or force. Exactly, Zektar said, grateful for the support. And, according to our archives, this protection has existed since before humans even achieved sapience. The question we must ask ourselves is not how to defeat humanity, but what power in the universe is so invested in their survival that it will commit genocide to protect them. Ambassador Drekmar of the Hive Mind suddenly activated his communication array, his insectoid features rigid with alarm. Urgent update from our scout networks. The approaching fleets have begun disappearing. The main display shifted to show tactical readouts from across the galaxy. Red icons representing Allied fleets were vanishing one by one, starting with those closest to Sol system. As the delegates watched in horror, entire armadas simply winked out of existence. The 9th Valtheri battle group just went dark, reported Admiral Cassera, her earlier bravado evaporating. 200 ships and 50,000 crew members. No distress signals, no debris fields. They just stopped existing. Chancellor Mordak's crystalline form darkened as he processed the implications. How many fleets have we lost contact with? 17 so far, and the rate is accelerating, Faxion reported grimly. Whatever is protecting humanity isn't waiting for the fleets to reach Earth. It's eliminating threats as they approach the outer boundaries of what appears to be a protected zone approximately 50 light-years in radius around Sol system. The chamber erupted again as delegates realized the magnitude of the disaster. Species that had contributed ships to the armadas were now facing the potential extinction of their entire space navies. Worse, they were beginning to understand that they had walked into a trap that had been set millions of years before their civilizations even existed. Elder scientist Quindala's brain patterns shifted to deep analytical mode. We need more data. Zektar, you mentioned the Observer Corps. What exactly have they been observing? Before Zektar could respond, the chamber's lights dimmed and the temperature dropped. 3 watchers materialized in the center of the room, their presence causing every delegate to fall silent. The middle watcher raised one elongated arm, and a new holographic display activated. The image showed Earth from orbit, a beautiful blue-green marble suspended in space. But, as the image zoomed out, the delegates could see something that made their blood freeze. Surrounding Earth's solar system, invisible to normal detection methods, was a massive structure. It defied description. Part technology, part energy field, part something else entirely that the mind could barely comprehend. It stretched across hundreds of astronomical units, a network of impossible geometries that seemed to bend spacetime itself. And, at its heart, barely visible even with the enhanced imaging, were ships. Not human ships, but vessels of such advanced design that they made the galaxy's most sophisticated technology look like stone tools. The lead watcher's voice echoed in every mind present. For 1,000 years, we have observed. For 1,000 years, we have documented. The truth you seek is beyond your current understanding, but we shall share what we have learned. The humans are not alone on Earth. They never have been. Living among them, in forms they cannot perceive, are representatives of the species you call the ancients. They did not vanish from the galaxy. They transformed, transcending physical reality as we understand it. And they have been conducting the most important experiment in the history of the universe. The display shifted to show human cities, but with a different visual spectrum. Moving through the crowds of humans, invisible to their senses, were the unmistakable energy signatures of ancient technology. The beings themselves appeared as shifting patterns of light and energy, observing, recording, occasionally intervening in subtle ways. The experiment? Chancellor Mordak managed to ask. Humanity represents something unprecedented in galactic evolution, the Watcher continued. They are developing along a path that has never been attempted before. Their capacity for growth, for change, for surprising even the ancients themselves, makes them invaluable. The protection they receive is not charity. It is necessity. Admiral Cassera found her voice. Necessity for what? The display changed again, showing deep space far beyond the galaxy's edge. In the vast darkness between galaxies, something moved. Something vast and hungry and filled with a malevolence that made every delegate step back instinctively. The Devourers return, the Watcher said simply. The true Devourers, not the pale imitations that have troubled the galaxy in recent centuries. They consumed the universe before ours, and they hunger for this one. The ancients' final calculations suggested that only one force in existence might have the potential to stop them. Humans, Zektar whispered, understanding flooding through him. Not humans as they are now, but what they might become. Their unique evolutionary path, their potential for growth and adaptation, their remarkable ability to surprise even transcendent beings, represents the galaxy's only hope. The protection they receive ensures they will have the chance to reach that potential. The chamber fell into stunned silence as the implications sank in. They had mobilized their fleets to attack the galaxy's potential saviors, protected by beings whose power they could barely comprehend. How long do we have? Elder Scientist Quindala asked. The vanguard of the Devourer fleet will reach our galaxy in approximately 2,000 years, the Watcher replied. Humanity must be ready by then, or all life as we know it will cease to exist. General Thaxion stepped forward, his military mind already working on the new paradigm. What can we do? How do we help? You survive, the Watcher said. You learn. You grow. And, when the time comes, you stand with humanity against the darkness. But, first, you must recall every remaining fleet before they too are eliminated as threats. The urgency of the situation galvanized the chamber. Delegates began frantically issuing recall orders to their surviving fleets, using emergency channels that bypassed normal military chains of command. The tactical displays showed the remaining red icons beginning to change course, turning away from Sol System. But, even as they worked to prevent further losses, a new alarm began blaring. Long-range sensors were detecting something approaching from the direction of Sol System. Something human. Impossible, Admiral Cassera breathed, staring at her tactical readout. According to our intelligence, humans don't have faster-than-light capability. The approaching signature resolved into something that made no sense. It was definitely human in origin, bearing the primitive fusion signatures they associated with Earth technology. But it was moving at speeds that should have been impossible for their level of development, and its course was taking it directly toward the galactic core. Archive, Chancellor Mordak commanded, cross-reference approaching vessel with all known human space technology. No match found, the archive responded. Vessel appears to be of human construction but incorporates technological principles not present in our database. The watchers exchanged glances, their forms flickering with what might have been surprise. This is unprecedented, the lead watcher admitted. Human technological development has accelerated beyond our projections. The experiment is proceeding faster than anticipated. As the human ship drew closer, communication channels crackled to life. A human voice, speaking in accented galactic standard, filled the chamber. This is Captain Sarah Chen of the UES Prometheus calling Galactic Council Station. We've detected massive fleet movements toward our system and the sudden disappearance of several armadas. We're here to discuss what appears to be a significant misunderstanding. The chamber fell silent. Humanity had just announced their arrival on the galactic stage, and they had done it with technology that shouldn't have existed and knowledge they shouldn't have possessed. The game, as the humans might say, was about to change dramatically. Captain Sarachin stepped through the airlock of Galactic Council Station with the confident stride of someone who had no idea she was walking into a room full of beings who had just learned they lived in a fundamentally different universe than they had believed. Behind her walked two other humans, Dr. Marcus Webb, a xenobiologist whose excited expression suggested he was barely containing his enthusiasm at meeting alien life, and Commander Jake Torres, whose hand rested casually on his sidearm despite the obvious futility of the gesture. The reception bay fell silent as the three humans entered. Hundreds of alien delegates stared at them with expressions ranging from awe to terror. Chen paused, her enhanced vision allowing her to take in the incredible diversity of life forms present. She had trained for this moment her entire career, but nothing could have prepared her for the reality of standing before representatives of dozens of civilizations. "Welcome, Captain Chen," Chancellor Mordak said, his crystalline form pulsing with nervous energy. "I am Supreme Chancellor Mordak of the Galactic Council. We have much to discuss." Chen nodded respectfully. "Thank you for receiving us, Chancellor. Though I have to say, your timing for first contact could have been better. Our deep space monitoring stations detected quite a bit of military activity heading our way." Ambassador Zektar stepped forward, his forearms wringing together anxiously. "Captain, there has been a grave misunderstanding. Several of our member species believed humanity posed a threat to galactic stability." "A threat?" Dr. Webb laughed, the sound carrying clearly through the chamber's acoustics. "We've barely figured out fusion power. Half our planet still runs on fossil fuels. What possible threat could we represent to civilizations capable of faster-than-light travel?" The question hung in the air like a bomb waiting to explode. Finally, General Thaxion found his voice. "Captain Chen, how exactly did your ship travel from Earth to this station?" "According to our intelligence, humanity has not yet developed superluminal propulsion." Chen's expression grew puzzled. "Intelligence? You've been watching us? For how long?" "That's not important right now," Commander Torres interjected, his military instincts picking up on the tension in the room. "What is important is that we detected massive fleet movements toward our system, followed by what our sensors interpreted as multiple fusion detonations at extreme range. We want to know if we're under attack." Elder scientist Quindala's brain patterns shifted to deep analysis mode. "Captain, please describe your propulsion technology." "Standard quantum field manipulation," Chen replied matter-of-factly. "We discovered the principles about 6 months ago when our deep space probe encountered an anomalous energy field near Pluto. Took us a while to reverse engineer the basic concepts, but once we understood the math, building the drive was relatively straightforward." The chamber erupted in whispers and startled exclamations. Several delegates activated their translation matrices, apparently unable to believe what they had heard. "Quantum field manipulation," Admiral Cassera repeated slowly. "Captain, do you understand what you just described?" "That technology represents a theoretical advancement beyond anything achieved by most of our civilizations. We've been using hyperdrive tunneling for 50,000 years because we never cracked the quantum field equations. Dr. Webb's excitement finally bubbled over. Really? That's fascinating. The mathematics are quite elegant once you approach them from a multidimensional perspective. Our AI systems had been working on the problem as a theoretical exercise when they detected the energy signatures near Pluto. Once we had real data to work with, the breakthrough came quickly. AI systems? Chancellor Mordak asked carefully. Our artificial intelligence networks, Chen explained. We've had them running global simulations for decades. Climate modeling, economic forecasting, theoretical physics. They're not sentient like in the old science fiction stories, but they're excellent at pattern recognition and mathematical analysis. The watchers in the chamber suddenly became very still, their forms flickering with what could only be described as alarm. The lead watcher stepped forward, its presence causing the temperature to drop noticeably. Captain Chen, these AI systems of yours, the watcher's voice echoed directly in everyone's minds. When exactly did they achieve breakthrough status? About a year ago, Torres answered. The government classified most of the details, but there was some kind of quantum processing breakthrough that increased their capabilities exponentially. Why? Is that significant? The watchers exchanged rapid communications in frequencies beyond normal perception. Finally, the lead watcher spoke again. More significant than you realize. The energy field your probe encountered near Pluto was not natural. It was a teaching device, placed there by the ancients to guide your development when you were ready. The three humans exchanged glances. Chen stepped forward. Ancients? We haven't detected any alien activity in our system. Because they don't wish to be detected, Ambassador Zektar said quietly. Captain, we need to explain something that may be difficult to accept. Your species has been under observation and protection for over 1,000 years. Protection from what? Webb asked, his scientific curiosity overriding his surprise. Instead of answering directly, Chancellor Mordak activated the main display. The image showed the massive structure surrounding Earth's solar system, causing all three humans to step back in shock. That's impossible, Torres breathed. Our deep space sensors would have detected something that massive. Not if it exists partially outside normal spacetime, elder scientist Quindala explained. The protection grid was constructed using technology that your species won't develop for several more centuries. Unless, of course, your recent acceleration continues. Chen found her voice. Protection grid? Protection from what? The display shifted to show the approaching Devourer fleet in the cosmic void between galaxies. The three humans stared in horrified fascination at the images of vast, predatory entities that defied description. The universe's oldest enemy, the Watcher explained. They consumed the previous universe and seek to devour this one. Your species represents the galaxy's best hope of stopping them. Us? Chen laughed, but the sound held no humor. We can barely manage not to destroy ourselves. Half our planet is still arguing about whether climate change is real while the other half is developing increasingly creative ways to kill each other. You think we can stop cosmic parasites? Not as you are now, the Watcher admitted. But your potential is unlike anything we have observed. Your artificial intelligence breakthrough was not coincidence. The quantum field technology you discovered was not luck. The ancients have been subtly guiding your development, waiting for the moment when you would be ready to take the next step. Dr. Webb was frantically taking notes on a small device. This explains so much. The quantum breakthrough, the sudden advancement in materials science, even some of the theoretical physics breakthroughs from the past few years. We thought we were just getting smarter. You are getting smarter, General Faxion said. But you're also being taught by beings whose understanding of the universe transcends normal reality. Commander Torres had been quietly listening to the exchange, but now he stepped forward with a soldier's directness. Cut to the chase. What do you want from us? Time, the Watcher replied simply. The Devourers will reach this galaxy in approximately 2,000 years. Humanity must be ready by then. But your recent acceleration suggests you might be ready much sooner than anticipated. Ready how? Chen asked. The display changed again, showing projections of human technological development. The curves were staggering, showing exponential growth in computing power, energy manipulation, and space travel capabilities. If current trends continue, elder scientist Quindala said, humanity will achieve Type 3 civilization status within 500 years. You will have the power to manipulate matter and energy on a galactic scale. But that's not the most important part, the Watcher added. Your species possesses something unique, unpredictability. Every other civilization in the galaxy has followed predictable development paths. You consistently surprise even transcendent beings. That unpredictability may be the key to defeating an enemy that has consumed entire universes. Captain Chen looked around the chamber, taking in the hundreds of alien faces watching her with expressions of hope and fear. So let me understand this correctly, she said slowly. You've all been following a rule that says don't attack humanity, written by ancient beings who transcended reality, because they believe we might eventually become powerful enough to fight cosmic entities that want to eat the universe? That is an overly simplified but, essentially accurate summary, Chancellor Mordak confirmed. Chen turned to her companions. Webb was practically vibrating with excitement, while Torres looked like a soldier who had just been told he was facing an impossible mission. What happens now? She asked. Now, the Watcher said, you go home and continue to grow. But you won't be growing alone anymore. The time for hiding has ended. The galaxy will help guide your development, share knowledge where appropriate, and learn from your unique perspective. And if we refuse? Torres asked. Then, the universe dies, the Watcher replied matter-of-factly. But we don't believe you'll refuse. Humanity has never backed down from impossible odds when the stakes were high enough. Chen looked around the chamber one more time, then activated her communication device. Prometheus to Earth control, she said calmly. Mission status has changed significantly. We're going to need a much larger delegation. And someone should probably warn the president that we just became the galaxy's last hope against cosmic horror. As her words echoed through the chamber, Ambassador Zektar couldn't help but notice that none of the humans seemed particularly intimidated by the prospect. If anything, they seemed energized by the challenge. Perhaps, he thought, the ancients had chosen correctly after all. In the depths of space, far beyond the galaxy's edge, ancient entities older than stars felt a tremor in the cosmic order. The experiment was accelerating beyond all projections. Humanity's potential was awakening far sooner than anticipated. The real test was about to begin.